My name is Melissa. I'm the founder of Numinity. We're an organisation that runs events and retreats with plant medicine and psychedelics. Not all with plant medicine and psychedelics, but quite a few. And I got into doing this work really through my own healing journey. I was born into a very dysfunctional family with a narcissistic mother and depressive father. And what that meant is that from the moment I was born, there was no space for my needs, my emotions, my authenticity. And I tried a lot of conventional methods of healing, went to therapy for 12 years, and at a certain point in my journey, I just started to feel like I was banging my head against a brick wall. I was so depressed that I used to wake up every morning just disappointed to be alive. And I had such a good intellectual understanding of why it was that I was in so much pain, but no frame of reference to change that. And I think sometimes with childhood trauma specifically, if you don't know what it means to feel safe in your body, if you don't know what it feels like to be loved, to be cared for, then you don't have the tools to be able to give that to yourself. And you can talk about it, and you can intellectualize it. Yes, I look in the mirror, I tell myself I love myself, but nothing really sticks. And so out of desperation, really, I decided to try working with plant medicine. I, at the time, was an atheist, very set in my rational corporate ways, had no real trust that this would happen, but I also felt hopeless. And it was from that place that I made the decision to drink ayahuasca. I cried the whole plane ride over to Spain, praying to this God that I didn't actually believe in, just saying, please, I don't want to die, please don't let me die. And I was so scared going into it. But one of the most amazing things about these medicines is they meet you where you're at. And actually, my first ceremony was so gentle. I experienced my parents' childhoods and experienced what they'd been through, how they came to be the way that they were. And in that, the healing that I found was the realization that none of what happened to me was personal. None of what happened to me had anything to do with me not being enough or not deserving love. And I felt for the first time whole. I came out of the ceremony and I looked in the mirror, and it was genuinely like I saw myself for the first time. I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh my God, you're so beautiful. Have you always been this beautiful? Like, I'd spent 28 years of my life just criticizing myself and looking, oh, this is wrong, I wish I looked like this, and oh, I wish I was more like this, and suddenly just seeing like the unique, magic, inherent beauty that exists in me and you and every other person on this planet. And it changed my life. I wish that was the end of the story, but as probably many of you are aware, healing is not a destination. It's an ongoing, lifelong piece of work. And particularly with psychedelics, the journey itself is just the beginning of the journey. So you have these light bulb moments. Aha, I see, I remember who I am. These feelings of deep truths resonating in your body. And in that moment, you think, okay, I get it, I understand, I'm free. And then you come back home and you slot back into your life where you've changed, but nothing else has changed. And this period that comes after the psychedelic journey is what's known as integration. And integration is actually not something that is unique to psychedelics. It's the way that we take these enlightening moments of realization and we make them a lived experience. How do we take the magic and weave it into our day-to-day life? Because it's hard. It's really hard being a human in the world and having to work and pay taxes and interact with difficult people and live in cities and all these things that we were not really designed to do. But once you've had a glimpse of the truth, a glimpse of the magic, you can find ways to bring that into your day-to-day experience. And there's a lot of assumptions that they're big changes, and actually they're not. It's not necessary for you to burn your whole life to the ground, unless you want to, and start again. But to think about what were the core messages that came through to me in that experience, and how can I start to take small steps towards feeling more of that in my day-to-day life. The self-love was a big piece for me in my first journey, and it wasn't like after that moment every day I woke up and thought I was amazing. You have good days and bad days, and you realise that self-love it's a practice. It's like any other relationship, your relationship with yourself, that you continue to invest in, continue to do the work to build. And the more that you invest in it, the more that you trust yourself, and the more it becomes integrated. And there's a point where you just stop thinking about it, and it's part of your being. Another thing that happens often with psychedelics is that we access our repressed emotions. We're British, so we don't like feeling our feelings. But every time we suppress, that stays somewhere in the body, in the mind, and that makes us sick over time. And particularly with ayahuasca, there's often a lot of purging. That's the physical release of emotional energy, stagnant stuff that's stuck in the body. And people think this is horrifying, that you would pay money to go and throw up in a bucket in a room full of strangers. But it's a healing process to let all of that go. But similarly, when you come back home and you're surrounded by people not feeling their feelings, the temptation, it's very tempting sometimes, it's just to dip back into not feeling. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to live with an open heart, because that means feeling the highs and feeling the lows. And the practice is a daily one of being present to yourself, to your inner child. Where are you on your emotional journey today? And just accepting it. And sometimes the relief that we get just from accepting, okay, this is where I'm at today. I don't need to change anything. I just need to accept myself. Always, in fact, every moment of every day. There are many different plant medicines, and people tend to talk about this experience of getting the call. The call is like a tap on the shoulder, someone saying, hey, over here, ayahuasca, it's your time. And when it comes, it starts to get louder and louder, to the point where it almost becomes undeniable. And for that reason, it's one of those things that you probably will hear about once, twice, 10 times, but may never consider doing until something switches inside of you. It's not the kind of thing that anyone should take lightly, because it is incredibly challenging, and I don't want to downplay that, but it's through confronting what is lurking in our subconscious that we can have real breakthroughs in our day-to-day life. The way that these medicines work is essentially by altering our states of consciousness. And it's through that altering that we can look at our lives, our problems, our relationships, our patterns with different perspectives. Sometimes you see cinematic visuals, stories telling you things about yourself and your life. Other times you see nothing and you're just thinking, but you're thinking about things in a slightly different way. And then there's a lot of physical sensation that can be felt as well in the body. A lot of that is softening, releasing, letting go of tension. And the power of doing the work when you get back on the other side to integrate these experiences is that humans are like sponges. We just suck stuff up environmentally from around us. And so you need the tools that you can use to squeeze the sponge at the end of the day and wring everything out. And I would say all people that won't be psychedelics, it'd be great to be just on psychedelics all the time, but probably wouldn't get much done. And so finding the practices that you can turn to in your day-to-day life, that's something I wanted to share more about with you today, because this is something you can start doing now. I mean, you can start doing psychedelics now as well, but it's something easier. Talked a bit about the emotional processing, really just allowing yourself to feel whatever it is that is coming up for you. The mind is like a wild horse that will drag you all over the place if you don't feed it and use your mental energy wisely. And what that looks like in terms of integration is understanding that if I'm not deliberate about where I place my focus, or what I feed my brain, it's going to slip back into its old, potentially toxic and unhealthy habits. Learning, lifelong learning. There's always more to learn. Things that feed the mind, because it does need to be fed, and make you feel like this is adding value to my life. The spiritual side of it, and there is a huge spiritual side of it, as well as I see a lot of studies talking about the science at the minute, but there is a ineffable magic that seems to happen when people work with psychedelics that turns lots of atheists into spiritual people. And really, for me, that's where the most powerful healing takes place. To recognize, yes, you are a human being here, but you're also part of something much bigger and cosmic and magical. And so, whatever you're experiencing you're not alone in that. We're all part of the same thing, on the same journey. When you speak to enough people about their problems and their difficulties, you realise, we're all the same. We're all the same sensitive humans just wanting to be loved and doing the best that we can, making a bunch of mistakes along the way. And that feeling of belonging is something that is so integral to feeling happy in the world. But we live so siloed in London and everywhere, disconnected from community. But it's my plug for Numinity. We put such a huge emphasis on community as the foundation of the work that we do, because no one can do this work in isolation. If you are one of the societally deemed lucky people to live alone, you have made it. Congratulations. But no one ever talks about what it's like to wake up every day by yourself and be solely accountable for making yourself do all the things that you know you need to do to make yourself be happy. We need community. We need accountability to bodies, people outside of ourselves, so that we can keep on keeping on, whatever life throws at us. And a plug for social wellness as well. They're keeping the community vibes going too. That feeling of connection to a body of people or divinity outside of yourself is what can be the balm on your feeling of loneliness, abandonment, separation in the world. That's the integration piece, but sometimes it has to be felt to be experienced, and like all these things, that requires us to go outside of our comfort zones. And we don't like going outside of our comfort zones. Humans don't like change. even when something's deeply uncomfortable, our tendency is to stay with the familiar, to stay with what's known, rather than to push through that frontier. It's one very big decision, to choose to work with these medicines, and it will almost inevitably be uncomfortable. There are very few people who just say, oh, that was wonderful, that was quite a nice time. But the benefits that you can receive from doing this work are so worth it. At least that's been the case for me and a lot of the people that I work with as well. I think it's the kind of decision that no one can talk you into, even though I'm a very compelling speaker. But give it some thought. Maybe it's for you in this lifetime, in this journey. Thank you.